Hey guys, welcome back for March Madness Day 16. I'm so glad you guys are here. The inspiration for today's video is epilepsy worldwide. So talking about how epilepsy affects people around the world and globally as opposed to just here in America. So I really wanted to talk about everybody in all countries, but the world is so big that would have been impossible. So I had to do a ton of research for this video. So if you guys are all interested in where I got my sources or doing some more research on your own, everything that I pulled from, everything that's in this video is down in the description below, all the links to the articles and stuff. So feel free to explore that on your own. I did validate and fact check everything, so this is all true, it's all real as of whenever the article was published. Made sure none of them were published before 2000 because then it gets to be too old. But I'm going to be talking about the effects of epilepsy in Uganda, the effects of epilepsy in China, the effects of epilepsy in Ireland, and the effects of epilepsy in India. So I kind of hit up the whole globe, but I obviously couldn't do every single country because that would make for a really, really long video. So, epilepsy in Uganda. Epilepsy in Uganda is so different than epilepsy here. It really makes me grateful for the kind of healthcare that we have here in America, because in Uganda, it's actually you are twice as likely to get epilepsy living in Uganda. And it's basically like that for any third world or developing country. And the reason for that is because epilepsy can actually stem from different bacterial parasites or different illnesses and things. So in countries where sanitation isn't a basic right like it is here in America, and where vaccinations aren't prevalent, it is far more likely that you're going to get those illnesses and that they are going to affect your brain and therefore cause epilepsy. Epilepsy is oftentimes a sign that you have been infected with one of those illnesses. So you are far, far more likely to get it in a country like Uganda, where there just isn't quite as much right to having basic human sanitation and stuff. But so in Uganda, epilepsy is often confused with malaria. People really don't know what's going on in either case. They just aren't educated enough, and so when they see someone get that sick, that they assume that they've been bitten by a mosquito and that they have malaria. So that is kind of the first assumption that they jump to. The second thing about epilepsy in Uganda is that oftentimes they can't get the medications they need, especially children. So in some parts of Uganda, they have AEDs, which is anti-epileptic drugs, but it's really hard for children, especially because they don't have a lot of pediatric neurologists over there, so they don't understand that children aren't just small adults. So they just take whatever medication they have available, and they just kind of shrink it down, and they go, okay, here, you can have this. But children, their bodies are still developing, and there's so many other factors in play that really, you can't just do that and expect for everything to be okay. So oftentimes the children with epilepsy don't get the help they need, which is really, really tragic and sad. So yeah, that's basically Uganda. They're really working on, there's a ton of American doctors over there, people writing articles and stuff. They're really trying to work on helping people in Uganda understand epilepsy better, because when they get an epilepsy diagnosis, a lot of times they associate it with witchcraft or being possessed and all sorts of things that you think are just ancient history. But no, people in Uganda, sadly, are not educated enough to understand what epilepsy truly is. So that is Uganda, which is not fun. So if you want to help anyone in Uganda, there are also links down below with different places that you can volunteer in Uganda, or different places that you can donate money to help support epilepsy research in Uganda. So I've also provided the links to those down below. So please feel free to click on those. All right, so moving on, epilepsy in Ireland. So this is going to be a contrast, because when I was researching epilepsy in Ireland, I figured that there would at least be some difference between Ireland and America, just because they're two different countries. I didn't think that they were going to be exactly the same. But I could not find anything different, surprisingly. I mean, we have Epilepsy Foundation in America. They have Epilepsy Foundation of Ireland. We have new research trials being done all the time, and articles and support groups, and so do they. So really, epilepsy in Ireland is essentially exactly the same as epilepsy in America, it just kind of blew my mind. I was like, okay, so you got America, you got Ireland, and then you got Uganda, which I just talked about, and it's like, we're all living on the same planet, but it's just so different. So there really isn't a ton to talk about in Ireland. There is still some effects of the epilepsy stigma going on, of course, but they combat it a lot better than people like in developing countries such as Uganda do. They're really on the same page as America. We're doing our best to fight against epilepsy. So that really made me happy, because I'm actually Irish, so I have Irish descent, so that made me happy that Ireland is on the same page with epilepsy awareness. So the next country I wanted to talk about is epilepsy awareness in India. So in India, 95% of people with epilepsy do not receive any treatment at all, which is very, very sad and tragic. And even if they do, most people in India don't get married, don't have kids, don't get employed. The stigma there is just, it's terrible. Like, having epilepsy is just one of the worst things in India. Like, I don't know why. I mean, obviously I know why. It's because of the stigma and having the old myths passed down, but it's tragic, and I wish that we could change that. So there's more articles down below about India and how to support people there. Most people with epilepsy, the reason 95% of people don't get treatment is because most people will not seek treatment for epilepsy in India because they hide it. And they're like, no, I don't want anyone to know I have epilepsy. So that's super sad. Treatment's also expensive there, so there's that. And then my last country is China. So there was a study done in China recently that I was reading about, where they were talking to 382 people about epilepsy, because they just wanted to get a feel for what people in China thought about epilepsy. And apparently 90% of people in China apparently 90% of people in this study thought that people with epilepsy could be productive members of society. So that's really good. However, only 16% of those same people thought that people with epilepsy would make a good partner, like a good husband or a wife, which is really, really sad. Overall, China was pretty understanding based on this study that I read. They're pretty caught up with Western culture in trying to understand epilepsy. It says here that 50% of people vow their participation in sports. They believe that people with epilepsy should be able to play sports. And 41% thought that people with epilepsy were intelligent. So it's really great, because if they seem to be catching up, hopefully the rest of the world will catch up soon. It says only 9.4% felt awkward and didn't want to seek help. So that's also spectacular about people with epilepsy in China. So that is all I have for you guys today regarding epilepsy worldwide. Over 65 million people live with epilepsy worldwide. So that is a ton of people. And this is only a very small snapshot of that, but I just kind of wanted to open everyone's eyes to how epilepsy looks in different cultures, whether that be Uganda and India and the stigmatization there, or Ireland and how similar it is to us, or China and how they just seem to be catching up to us. So it's really fascinating to learn about epilepsy in different cultures and how they handle it and how they treat it. So if you want to do any more research, I highly encourage it. It is a great subject to learn about. And I will see you guys all tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.